NBC in New York. This is World News Tonight, Sunday, with Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students. The Americans inside have been taken prisoner, and according to a student spokesman, will be held as hostages until the deposed Shah is returned from the United States, where he's receiving medical treatment for cancer.
Fanatical supporters of Iran's new leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, storm the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and take everyone they find there hostage. American citizens, soldiers, and diplomats, bound, blindfolded, paraded before the world. Images of humiliation and helplessness sear their way into the hearts and minds of America. The greatest power on earth, unable to deal effectively with a nation that sometimes seems possessed by madness. A time of outrage and heartbreak, of broken promises and dashed hopes, of a king without a country, and a president held powerless in the fierce grip of Islamic fundamentalism.
Recently, there has been another very serious development which threatens the maintenance of the peace in Southwest Asia. Massive Soviet military forces have invaded the small, non-aligned, sovereign nation of Afghanistan. The Soviets claim, falsely, that they were invited into Afghanistan to help protect that country from some unnamed outside threat. But the president, who had been the leader of Afghanistan before the Soviet invasion, was assassinated, along with several members of his family, after the Soviets gained control of the capital city of Kabul. A Soviet-occupied Afghanistan threatens both Iran and Pakistan and is a stepping stone to possible control over much of the world's oil supplies. The United States wants all nations in the region to be free and to be independent.
Neither the American people nor I will support sending an Olympic team to Moscow.
Today in his bid to boycott the Moscow Olympic Games because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. In Colorado Springs, ABC's Tom Shell was on hand for the announcement of a decision on sending a U.S. team to Moscow.
The United States Olympic Committee has decided not to send a team to the 1980 Summer Games in Moscow.
The delegates to the U.S. Olympic Committee meeting approved the resolution by more than a 2-to-1 margin, 1604 to 797. The vote came after weeks of pressure from the Carter administration. Bowing to the pressure, the Olympic Committee reluctantly agreed to back President Carter.
It was a rather routine FBI undercover investigation of a stolen property fencing ring. But what was routine for the FBI soon became extraordinary. The FBI says it found an organized crime informant who told the FBI about dealings with dozens of politicians in a number of states and in Washington, D.C. FBI agents were seen entering the home of New Jersey Senator Harrison Williams. These pictures are made by NBC News with a special night lens. Sources say that more than 100 FBI agents today confronted the targets of Operation Abscam, telling them of the evidence against them. In the case of Senator Williams, federal investigators say the senator did not take cash directly, but instead was involved in promising to use his influence in conversations with the undercover FBI agent.
Just a few minutes ago, 2 members of the FBI were here, and for the first time I learned about this and really don't know any of the facts of anything, and therefore I'm in no position to comment about what I don't know is happening at the department, but the department evidently has told you a lot more than they've told me.
You're not the target of an investigation, Senator? Can you say that you're not the target of an investigation?
Right now it appears that I am, and that
FBI's Abscam undercover operation was made public. 31 public officials were targeted, including senators and congressmen. Abscam stood for Arab Scam. The FBI agents posed as representatives of a fictional business owned by an Arab sheik. They met outside with officials inside hotels and homes and offered them money for special favors. Well, 5 congressmen and 1 senator were convicted of bribery and corruption.
Very slowly, a step at a time, the hope for world peace erodes. Slowly, we once slid into Korea, slowly into Vietnam, and now the Persian Gulf beckons. Jimmy Carter's weak, indecisive leadership has vacillated before events in Angola, Ethiopia, and Afghanistan. Jimmy Carter still doesn't know that it takes strong leadership to keep the peace. Weak leadership will lose it. The message Ronald Reagan has carried to America is one of confidence.
Whatever else history may say about my candidacy, I hope it will be recorded that I appeal to our best hopes, not our worst fears, to our confidence rather than our doubts.
Strength, restraint, inspired leadership. The time is now. Reagan for president.
We started with a trip up the great river Henry Hudson, discovered in 1609, looking for that fabled Northwest Passage to the Orient. We used it now as our own passage to the North Country, leaving behind the skyscrapers of Manhattan, skimming along by helicopter over the thinly iced waters of the river. And Americans across the land spontaneously singing their national anthem in a display of national pride not seen in a long while.
Losing it, Krutov. Up ahead to Maltsev. Maltsev on a breakaway. Maltsev gets it by Craig to give the Soviets his power play opportunity. 13 seconds left in the penalty. Weak shot for Davis. Followed by Johnson. They score!
U.S. team is depending a little bit too much now on Jim Craig. He's making too many good saves.
Eruzione! Mike Eruzione! Petrov with it. The Americans on top, 4-3. Long shot. Craig able to get a piece of it to sweep it away. 28 seconds. The crowd going insane. Karlamov shooting it into the American end again. Morrow is back there. Now Johnson, 19 seconds. Johnson over to Ramsey. Bilyaletdinov gets checked by Ramsey. McClanahan is there. The puck is still loose. 11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Crooked! And I believe you knew that. You'll regret this.
Is that a threat, Vaughn?
A promise.
I've put up with all the wheeling and dealing and backstabbing that I'm going to. We leave in the morning.
You're a drunk and unfit mother. The sooner we have you put away in that sanitarium, the better off you're gonna be.
He's got to be stopped. I can't rely on anyone else to do what I have to do.
Are you in here? Hello? Who's there?
They were the shots heard round the world. 2 .38 caliber slugs to the gut that took Dallas from a primetime guilty pleasure to a pop culture phenomenon.
What everybody wants to know is who shot J.R. Ewing.
Came to Dallas to find out confidentially who shot J.R.
You went to the office that night with J.R.'s gun. It was you, Kristen, who shot J.R.
He'll let the seconds tick off to give Miami no opportunity whatsoever. Timeout is called. 3 seconds remaining. John Smith is on the line, and I don't care what's on the line, Howard. You have got to say what we know in the booth.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival. Hard to go back to the game after that news flash, which in duty bound we had to take. Frank?
Those great entertainers and musicians, John Lennon of the Beatles, was shot outside his New York home. So we begin tonight by bringing you up to date on that story. John Lennon was shot 3 times at around 11 p.m. Eastern Time. He was rushed to New York's Roosevelt Hospital, but died a few minutes later. Police have a suspect in custody whom they describe only as a local screwball.
Lennon was coming home from a late-night recording session, accompanied by his wife, Yoko Ono, when the attack occurred. Police say the assailant shouted Lennon's name before running up behind him with a .38 caliber revolver. The suspect in custody is identified as 25-year-old Mark David Chapman from Hawaii. Police say he'd been in the New York area for about a week, apparently stalking Lennon.
Overnight, hundreds of mourners gathered at the Dakota to pay tribute to Lennon, some of them placing flowers right here at the site where Lennon was gunned down. When the candlelight vigil began, someone shouted, "John would not have wanted us to be so solemn," and that's when the singing of Lennon's songs began. Beyond the sadness and the confusion over his death, this has become a celebration of the man and his music.
The United States should be more forceful in its dealings with the Soviet Union, and that was a popular position among the people we interviewed. Reagan voters tended to think inflation was the most important issue, which was certainly what Reagan said during his campaign. Carter voters were more likely to cite unemployment and Iran. But overall, the message seems to be a loss of faith across the country in Jimmy Carter. About a third of the Reagan voters, as we said, and about a third of the Anderson voters said they voted that way simply because they wanted a change.
Let me just say, first of all, this has been, well, there's never been a more humbling moment in my life. I consider the trust that you have placed in me sacred, and I give you my sacred oath that I will do my utmost to justify your faith.
Long drive, watch that baby! Way out of here! Home run! Mike Schmidt! Phillies lead 6-4! Pete Rose scores in front of him! Number 48 for Schmidt! I have never seen Mike as excited as this! Bills lead at 6-4! What a big blow by Schmidt! He's just set a record for third baseman, shattering Eddie Matthews' mark, most homers in a magnificent job McGraw has done. Since July 17th, his earned run average is about 0.38. Just an incredible second half. He's ahead of Parrish, 0-2. Struck him out! Phillies are the National League Eastern Division champions. Tug McGraw is being mobbed. The Phillies are in the playoffs. Tug McGraw, an unbelievable finish to an unbelievable year for the Phillies, who have won it by a score of 6-4 on Mike Schmidt's homer.
WPHL TV, Channel 17, Philadelphia, your Phillies playoff station.
Phillies Baseball 1980.
Hi, everybody from the Astrodome in Houston. Welcome to Phillies Baseball. League Championship Series Game 5. It can't go anymore. Phillies and the Houston Astros at 2 games apiece. Harry Kalas along with Rich Ashburn.
Gary swings. It's a base hit. Poole overruns it. Run scores from third. Unser to give Philadelphia the lead 8-7 in the top of the 10th. Poole made a great try at it. He almost came up with it, then overran it a little bit. Maddox goes on into second. They appealed it. They got the call down the right side. 3-2. He hits it to right center field. Maddox going. It's over. The Phillies win it. 8-7.
So they are not the same old Phillies. They are the 1980 Phillies. They did it as hard a way as it has ever been done. They did it with a controversial manager, openly disliked by many of his players, but they did it.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
When do you think I'm going to start shaving?
It's going to be a few years, son. But when you do, you got something great to look forward to.
Aquavelva, right, Dad?
Right. Aquavelva is real cooling. It picks you up after a shave. And it's got a fresh, clean fragrance that the girls in your class are going to love. Aquavelva, it makes a man.
Feel like a man, right, Dad?
All right.
There's something about an Aquavelva man.
Veterans Stadium on a cool, crisp night. 48 degrees the temperature at game time. Some 65,000 wild fans jammed in here, and they are ready. And they're wondering, are the Phillies ready? Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Garagio. Veterans Stadium, Game 6. The stage is... The crowd will tell you what happens. Larry. Congratulations to the Phillies, congratulations to the Kansas City Royals, and for Tom Seaver and Tony Kubek, Joe Garagiola saying so long from Philadelphia. World champions, the Philadelphia Phillies, first time ever.